Welcome back to another video with yours truly, King Jiffy Coats, and I want to know what you boys and girls are thinking. What am I doing here? Well, with the recent release of Lies of P, I decided to chronologically go through my experience with the Souls series. Though I have not played Lies of P yet, I will eventually when I'm not in the country of Hungary and I'm back near my Xbox, my Xbox, not my PlayStation, because my Xbox I can play it on Game Pass. Anyways, my journey started as many others did with Elden Ring. And the funny thing is, this game didn't grab me right away. In fact, at the time, I really didn't have the money to buy it, but I had the money to buy it, and my wife was like, please don't buy the game. I know you want to play it. I know all your friends are talking about it. I know that you look up pictures of it and edge to it online, but don't buy it. Well, she was going out of town that weekend, and I was like, I'm going to buy it. Well, I bought it, and thank God I only had an Xbox at the time, because I don't know if you've tried to refund games on the PlayStation store before, but it's like pulling an old lady's like taint hair. You know those how old people have like those really soft hairs that already don't have the power that they once did. Well, that's like, and so you keep pulling, it keeps breaking, and that's how trying to refund a game on PlayStation is. In Xbox, it's much simpler, and that's not me to throw shade at PlayStation. I think PlayStation does a lot of great things, which we'll get to in a bit, but when it came to Elden Ring, I'm glad that I could refund it then. Well, I waited a couple weeks, got my next paycheck, and I bought the game then. And I'm not going to lie, I almost didn't buy the game because when I did buy it, before I refunded it, I tried playing it, and goddamn did I get my butthole just reamed. The first dog I ran into beat me. And then I beat that dog and went into a cave, and then a werewolf beat me. And then I ran into a guy, thought he was an NPC to talk to, and he stabbed me and beat me. And I'm like, this kind of sucks. I don't like this. Well, I gave it a couple weeks, looked up some guides on how to become OP, ran back into the game, and yes, I used all the guides I could. I used all the exploits I could. It's just how I beat the game. It was what I needed to succeed. And as you can see right here, it worked out. Well, as you saw back then, here's me showing you some of my exploits, how I had to glitch some of these bosses. I cheesed some of this stuff. I had so much cheese dripping to beat Elden Ring that, some people might call it cheating. I call it utilizing the tools the game gave me. Anyways, I jumped back into Elden Ring, and once I actually used that guide to make the game a little bit more manageable, and then I started chipping off some of those bosses that really I thought were going to give me a tough time, and Margit really did. Margit's the one that, the fellow man, he's the one that jumped down and was a dickhead to me. I fought him over and over again, and grinded and strived for greatness, only to die and start over again. Even with the little OP guide I used, I still needed the skill to beat that boss. And the moment I beat him was like, okay, I'm on this game. I love this game. This is my shit. I'm going to fucking ride this thing until it's broken. And that's what I did. And after all was said and done and the credits rolled, I realized I needed more of this experience. I needed more. And I ran through the game. I think I got 90% through the game again. I think I might have finished it again. I beat a second playthrough. That's what I did. I did a second playthrough, and I'm like, yeah, that was great. But I need something new. I need a new experience. And so I went and bought the entire Dark Souls trilogy. The first one I got because I wanted the more recent, better mechanics, a lot better polished gameplay, so I started with 3. Now, I know what you're thinking. The background footage is from Bloodborne, and we'll get to that game. But I didn't have any saved footage on my phone, and like I said, I'm in a different country. So I started with Dark Souls 3, and I'm like, okay, I kind of vibe with this game. I really like it. I liked the gameplay felt very similar to Elden Ring. I was like, okay, I mess with this. I'm kind of vibing. But it still felt like it had more jank, and I was like, yeah, they kind of polished it. I get that this is a previous iteration, but I like it. And when you buy a bunch of games at the same time, you want to go back and play them. So knowing that most people hate on Dark Souls 2, I was like, I'll wait on that one because I got it in a bundle with the remaster in 2, so I jumped to 1. Now, my problem with 1 when I ran into it was I found a cool weapon. I'd worked hard to get this weapon. I went to like some weird dungeon area, and I found this weapon that had a cool weapon art. And I was like, oh, cool, this thing, I'm just slashing through enemies. This is awesome. Well, the sword kept fucking breaking. And now, I understand weapon durability, but I don't like it when it's tied to the currency I need to level up and stuff, because I felt like I was stuck in this eternal loop of fixing my weapon, going into a boss fight, using it half the time, and then having to switch to a different weapon, and it was irritating. It wasn't fun. It was grindy. And the more I played Dark Souls 1, the more I realized it felt more like a grind than it actually felt laid out game like a lot of people had led me on to the belief, and the runs to the boss fights were just atrocious. Like about Dark Souls 3 for me, right? I'd run to the boss fights, I'd have a good time, I'd go to the next area, run to the boss fights. The runs were never that far, and the little shortcuts you could find were really, really beneficial. I felt like Dark Souls 1, I never got that same vibe. So at that point, I realized, maybe Dark Souls isn't for me. Dark Souls 3 I like, but maybe the rest of the series just isn't my bag. If I don't like 2, if I don't like 1, I hear 2 is worse than 1, so why would I play 2? And so my journey began again. I needed something new. I was like, okay, well, I heard these Surge games were pretty close to it being as good as it can get when it comes to polished, another studio doing a FromSoft-like, Dark Souls-like thing, but it was in a sci-fi world, and I love sci-fi, so I was like, I'm going to give these games a shot, and I'm not going to lie, man, I did not like the Surge 1, and I think I got them in a dual pack. Surge 2 felt like kind of an improvement, but it never grabbed me. I like the mechanic where you can cut off arms and stuff and get their weapon, but it just didn't grab me. It wasn't there. And like I said at the beginning, earlier in this video, I did not own a PlayStation at this time yet. Nothing really had shouted out to me on the PlayStation. None of the exclusives really seemed to say, hey, come get me. Other than God of War, I'd always meant to get a PlayStation to play the God of War games. But like the Spider-Man game, I really love Spider-Man, but I was like, down the line, maybe I'll get a PlayStation. Well, at this time, I was kind of getting thirsty. I was drowning in a desert of things I wanted to play. And as a last-ditch effort, before I bought a PlayStation, I went and got Sakura. Knowing that this was the most modern FromSoft game previous to Elden Ring, thinking, okay, I loved Elden Ring. And this is, Dark Souls 3 felt old and janky, so Sekiro must have flushed out all the problems that I had with Dark Souls 3, even though I love Dark Souls 3, don't get it twisted in the comments, but leave a comment. I was like, this is it, and so I jumped into Sekiro, and this shit felt like a fucking helicopter parent, bro. Every 2 seconds, I'm feeling like the game is trying to force me to play a certain way, and it's real hand-holdy, but not hand-holdy in, like, the way you're thinking, where it's like the game's, like, making it easy so that it can walk you through the scary world. No, it's just like, it's grabbing my hand and yanking me in a direction, and I don't like that, man. I want to play the game my way, and that's what Elden Ring, and even Dark Souls 3, and even fucking Surge let me do it. Let me try and play the game my way and really learn and fail on my own merit and try different things and really experience the game. And Sekiro wasn't letting me do that. And now that I think Sekiro's a bad game? No, I think it has a lot of cool things going for it. And maybe one day down the line, I'll give it another couple attempts, because from what I've heard from friends is you try Sekiro once, don't like it. Try Sekiro twice, you don't like it. But when you jump in that third time and really, really flush out that combat, baby, it slaps. But like, I haven't had that experience yet, so Sekiro really was a letdown for me. It really upset me. It pissed me off with the combat. I was like, okay, I get it, parrying, and I don't know, it just wasn't vibing for me. So fast forward a little bit, we go to back to my hometown, and my cousin, he had a PS4, and he sold it to me for like $75. And at the I went and bought Bloodborne right away. I flew in going after Bloodborne, because the whole reason behind me buying this game or this console was to play Bloodborne over any other PlayStation exclusive, over anything else the PlayStation had in its library. I wanted to play Bloodborne more than anything else they had. And god damn it, was I gonna do it. As soon as I jump into Bloodborne, the atmosphere grabs me. Now, something about me is I love vampires, I love werewolves, I love that kind of gothic vibe. There's something about it I've always fell in love with. I mean, shit, even in Harry Potter, our Hogwarts Legacy, I made my little room of specialties, or whatever it's called, very gothic themed, because I love that world. I've always enjoyed movies like Blade and Van Helsing and stuff like that, and this game encompasses that. You feel like you're in the movie Van Helsing, but darker. And I just fucked with that so hard. And every moment I loved it. And even the challenges that I ran into early in the game, because yes, I used the Blood Chalice glitch where I became like level 1.5 trillion within the first couple days. But I had to grind through the Blood-Starved Beast, which I think is a weird name for the monster, but at the same time works. Because if you look at the Blood-Starved Beast, and don't tell me it doesn't look like a gaping vagina. Like a vagina of just been plowed through on endless gangbangs of BBCs, and it just looks like a roast beef sandwich in the middle of this game. Not to mention that it's blood starved, so it hasn't had its time of the month for a very long time. It needs to release some of that and suck it back up. And I remember grinding and grinding and grinding and failing and grinding and loving it, but hating it at the same time. And the more I played the game, even after I was like ungodly leveled, I went through the DLC bosses, which this DLC boss you're watching right here, she laid the groundwork, which goes into one of my favorite bosses, which you saw at the beginning of the video from Elden Ring, which her name is Melania. And Melania was one of my favorite bosses I'd ever encountered in a video game. Like, stop, period, let's go, no babies this month. I'm just kidding. But at the same time, Melania put me through a gauntlet that I'd never known before. So when I met Maria in Bloodborne in the DLC, I'm like, oh my god, Elden Ring is more like Bloodborne than it is like any of the other Dark Souls game. It really has the identity of Bloodborne running through it, and Bloodborne hooked me. To this day, I think Bloodborne is my favorite third-person game of all time. I don't think any other game will compete. I've tried almost all of them. Hell, I've put myself through like Spider-Man, which I like Spider-Man. I bought the PS4. I know that I said was kind of mid on Spider-Man because that's kind of my recency bias, but at the time I really wanted to play Spider-Man 2. So when I got the PS4, I definitely bought Spider-Man. I had the Bloodborne, which Bloodborne is one of my favorite games of all time, and then I definitely went and got Final Fantasy VII Remake, and Spider-Man was a letdown to me, which I've mentioned a million times and a half, but Final Fantasy VII Remake is still one of my top third-person games, but it doesn't even hold a candle to Bloodborne. Bloodborne really elevated itself from the rest of the Souls series. I think it elevated itself from any Souls-like that could ever come out. And one of the reasons I'm excited for Liza P is Liza P really looks like it's trying to capture that Bloodborne stylistic vibe and from what Iron Pineapple has says, and if you don't follow his channel, go follow him. He is the voice on Souls game. It really does hit that itch, which I'm glad to hear, because even like the Demon Souls remake, I really wasn't a fan of. I don't like the health mechanic where you're constantly out of health, and I like the world, but it feels weird and like a chopped up version of Dark Souls, and I feel like Dark Souls, even Dark Souls 1, really smoothed out the creases and the problems with Demon Souls. And even though Demon Souls looks beautiful, and on my PS5 it really runs well, and like I said, looks gorgeous, it is a gorgeous game, it still didn't scratch that itch that I need, because I play with such an aggressive style in Elden Ring and in Bloodborne that with having to play things a little more timidly and a more Dark Souls-like, I don't enjoy those games, you know? And I just need something to fill that void sometimes, and every day I'm looking to see what new is coming from FromSoft, what their next plan is, what other studios are trying to do, like the developers of Liza P. Are they making this more gun and go style Souls-like, because that's what I need. And I hope you enjoyed my little spree here, kind of going into my journey with the Souls games, and just know that I don't have any hate for the Dark Souls games. Hell, eventually I will try to grind and beat them, but at the same time, there's always going to be a part of me that looks at them and thinks they're not as good as Bloodborne and Elden Ring, because those two games really changed my view on gaming. Not like gaming as a whole, but gaming in like third-person styles. I mean, I always liked a more hack-and-slash style game, like a Devil May Cry or a God of War, the older God of Wars. And not that the new God of War is bad, it just has that more parry-based combat, which I'm kind of middling on. I find it kind of disappointing. Same thing with the Assassin's Creed stuff. It's just, I like it, but it's not my favorite. This run and gun style slashing through, it's reminiscent of a hack and slash like Devil May Cry, but it also puts in the skill gap that you need on a parry based. But the enemies never feel grindy. They feel well balanced and fair. And the only time it feels a little grindy is when you're doing a boss, but you're learning their move set and learning how to rush through each challenge. And that's what made me love Elden Ring and Bloodborne. Is you never feel like you're at the will of the game. You feel like you're in control the whole time, and even Dark Souls makes you feel that way. But Bloodborne, it's like you're mainlining amphetamines right into your penis and just saying, "Let's go fucking crazy." I mean, Bloodborne, he's even using a syringe, so come on, that's a great reference, and you know it. But leave a comment, guys. I really hope you enjoyed the video today. Like the video. If you hate me, go ahead and tell me you hate me in the comments. I love that type of shit. And subscribe to my channel. I love you all. Have a great time.